Roger.
Right. Hello. It's good to be back in New Zealand. It's good to be back in Auckland. It's very kind of you to have built the Wynyard Quarter. I just love a country that makes superb wines and then creates lovely places to sit and drink them. The quality of life is about. I had to say I was in Christchurch last week, and that was very enjoyable and actually very motivating to go to the Court Theatre and realise what the community and energy can do from the arts, and the most valued thing that people wanted to do after that huge earthquake was to recreate their theatre and bring it back to life, and that was very stimulating. Roger and Helen, so John and Helen gave me a brief for today and kind of said, could I bring a kind of international overview to kind of where the trends are going in different countries and so on, and that's what I've set out to try and deliver for you today. I do think there's an interesting context, however, that it's worth understanding, and that is for quite literally the first time since the Second World War in Europe, the UK included, we are seeing major regressive cuts to the funding of the arts. And that is actually seriously affecting the viability of arts organisations. And it's coming at a time when our coalition government insists, I have to say, we're in a flatlining economy. I call it, technically speaking, a recession. But we're supposed to say very confidently it's a flatlining economy. And that is actually making it difficult for people to sell tickets, to retain and build their audiences, and so on. Now, the good news is that arts audiences are holding up. In some cases, people are doing particularly well. But if their underlying funding isn't good enough, we are losing venues. We've lost places like the Bio Theatre in St Andrews, Brewhouse Theatre in Taunton, and they're just, a couple of examples. If you look at the situation in the US, it is far even worse. They have lost, I think it's 9 opera companies, 7 symphony orchestras, and real challenges and real difficulties. So some of the trends and things we're talking about today are coming from organisations who, sometimes sounds strange to say this, are actually having to wake up and recognise that unless they engage more closely with their audience, develop their earning capacity in relation to those people, get them closer, get them supporters, get them into fundraising and so on, that their actual future survival is kind of threatened. If you look in the Netherlands, where effectively funding has been cut by a third, there are organisations who almost didn't need to worry about the box office income, for whom it's now become their operational surviving lifeline. And I think that changes the context. I also thought I'd try and kind of focus on, in a sense, the change as we see it reflected in organisations that are fairly up to date. This is the Wales Millennium Centre. You'll gather from that name that it's open for the millennium. And it has the world's longest box office counter. You can spot that there is only one person behind that. A colleague of Andrew's used to work at the Wales Millennium Centre and describes it as the loneliest chef in the world. David Pearce, the commercial director of the venue, points out they've now repurposed the person behind the counter who has got basic training on selling tickets, yes, but is primarily there to be a receptionist and information provider to visitors, because in fact there are almost no over-the-counter sales anymore, which is kind of an interesting situation. From the plush to the pleasant, I kind of just thought it is very interesting. What is a box office physically? And you dump a porta cabin in your foyer, you put PatronBase inside it, and a friendly, smiling person behind the counter, and that's a box office. And I kind of sometimes ask myself, you know, kind of what is the box office and what should it be? The lovely Royal Danish Playhouse in Copenhagen has this lovely island unit. I won't show you the slide with a picture of the tech that you can see behind the counter. They really do let it all hang out. That's it. Open. Where's the staff? They come out if somebody comes in. But basically, you know, we're moving on to where the box office is going. This is the Jackie Onassis Centre in Athens. It has about 7 auditoria in it. The only time it's busy is just before performance. It's the only box office I know that has, in fact, no back office. That's it, the staff behind the counter. And I just loved the moment when this young woman asked the person she was serving to come round the back to talk to her so they could have a face-to-face conversation. And it kind of struck me, this is something interesting going on as to what we're using the box office for. I was disappointed that they wouldn't let me take a photograph with the member of staff sitting there. But they came in, I'll tell you in a minute, they asked me what language I wanted to be served in, offered me 3, choice of 3, and asked me to take a seat, and the member of staff then served me. There's another one next to it here, another one this way, and if you can see this, these are white mosaic tiles, because this is Calatrava's Opera House, Palais des Arts in Valencia. That whole building is covered in white mosaic tiles. In this photograph, these are a line of trees. Okay? The whole building has a footprint at the bottom about the size of this room and is surrounded by water. Fascinating. And the architectural design and detail is just stunning. Now, the reason I'm making this point is that it seems to me that we need to address the fact that we are, you know, in 2013, we're in the 21st century, patterns of ticket purchase and behaviour have been changing. We've got some astonishingly different buildings and so on, and yet we are not necessarily rethinking what the box office is and how it works. And I was reminded that a colleague of mine, he lives in Cambridge, Bill Thompson, he's the worldwide technology correspondent for the BBC. You may have heard him, he's on the World Service and so on. He said in 2001, box office would be dead by 2010. Well, it's not, but he said that. I responded by saying ticketing will be the heart of marketing, and I said that in 2001. And I wrote books like Full House with Tim Roberts and Vicky Press Hill and so on, which Creative New Zealand published. And his argument was online opportunities will replace it completely by 2010. And my response was to say, I think the opportunities will transform it, it'll be a different place. And so on. Now, the interesting thing is, what I can report to you is that, generally speaking, the pattern worldwide is that that has actually happened. And we're now in, I would say almost this is the main message that I would want to communicate to you, is that the box office is only the physical presence for the sales function. And we kind of need to be asking a lot of serious questions. Where and how do we want ticket sales to take place? I think that's kind of, you know, a very, very basic but obvious question. That wonderful Palais des Arts in Valencia, the box office only opens at 6 o'clock. And basically, you come along only between 6 and 7:30, and they'll do 2 things. They'll sell you the advance tickets in person, that's the only time they provide that service, or you come along because there will be half-price tickets for whatever they have got on that evening at that time. The rest of the time, all purchases are online or on the phone. You know, that's the only time they're open. We're seeing more and more venues in the UK who are reducing those physical box office hours to a lot of people opening at noon now, where they used to open in the mornings. And they're starting to make these decisions about debating when and how their tickets are available. And what quality of interaction and customer experience do we want to achieve? What are we trying to do? Are we just, at the end of the day, selling a piece of printed, thin card to somebody with information on? Or actually, are we trying to engage with them? Are we trying to relate to them more effectively? And what we're seeing is we're moving away from the transactional to the relational. We're choosing the fact that this is a point of contact, this is a dialogue, this is an interface. Doesn't matter which channel, very often there can be a dialogue. In a sense, we're stopping selling and we're trying to help people buy. We're here to give them information, we're here to be persuasive, we're here to make sure they have a great visit and a great experience. And yes, we're wanting it to be part of the engagement process. My colleague Ron Evans, based in San Jose in California, makes the point over and over again that we kind of need to rethink. People like Tim Baker and so on talking about pricing, keep talking about the psychology of purchase. We need to look at the psychology of thinking about going out, what those people are expecting to get out of the experience and what the relationship is. And it's very, very important to understand and remember that purchasing the ticket, planning to make the visit, etc., is part of delivering that quality of experience. The irony is somebody may dislike the show, but love the sales process and the people they met at the venue and related to them. And I think we just need to remember that that's where things like loyalty come from. So, it's not the box office anymore in that sense. Best analogy is, John and I have debated, have the walls fallen down or have they just dissolved away? I think they've disappeared. They're not there anymore. And I think that that's a very important thing to try and understand. It's transparent, it's facing customers, internal as well as external, in all directions. I say that thing about the internal customer. I suppose in my working lifetime, I've watched from the point at which the box office was always at the end of the line, kind of below the salt, the lowest of the low in the organisation. Yes, they're out front talking to people all day, every day, but you know, basically they're not really part of the creative process and so on. They're just selling the tickets. To a situation now where we're seeing in the US and Europe, where suddenly the box office is the powerhouse of the organisation. The database, the truth, the people who know about all the attenders, all the relationships they have, and they're now feeding information to loads of departments and so on. And that change is very, very interesting, and sometimes the impact it has on the people working in it. We're just finishing off in the UK doing the National Occupational Standards for ticketing personnel, and there was a wonderful moment in a brainstorming session they were holding about defining the key responsibilities for people who worked in ticketing. And they were discussing the responsibility of the staff to appropriately make Twitter messages about the shows that are on to help people sell tickets, to help encourage people to attend, and so on. And that's gone into the national standard. Everybody agreed these were people who were on a high level of communication and interfacing in the public. I thought that was fascinating. External customers, they drive the decisions on sales channels by the devices and networks they use. Andrew does lots of analysis in the UK of the PatronBase clients, as do other system suppliers, and can demonstrate the proportions accessing online ticket purchase by different devices. You suddenly tell arts organisations, did you know 20% of your customers are actually coming and buying tickets online on an iPad, and everybody's racing off saying to their web developers, we need to reformat our website, it must serve up an optimised version for iPad. It's the customers who are in effect defining the devices. It's no longer for us to say, if you want to buy tickets from us, this is what we do, this way, this is when you can access it. It's the customers who are helping define that process. Internal customers use the database reporting analyses as key resource tool. It's a very different relationship, it's a very different process. The box office is managing the interface of the sales channels, satisfies all the customers, internal and external, according to their needs. And, I have to say, one of the interesting challenges, therefore, we're now seeing is the notion that the out-of-work actor or musician is somebody who can work in the box office, and we're happy to let him do that, is changing, because the box office needs to be a much more professional role, a person who's got both developed customer service skills, but also got some database skills and so on. We're seeing some interesting organisations who the disappearance of the box office is such that there is no longer any box office staff, because all the marketing team have to be capable of selling tickets to anybody, whether they phone up, whether they come into a counter, or whatever. And it seems to me that's in itself an interesting development. So, I'm going to romp through some, what I think, significant opportunities to work smarter. So, I'm going to look at personalisation, genuine personalisation being delivered, channel control, the whole business of form and content factors according to devices, screens, tasks, and so on. Social media interfaces and integration and the opportunities around those. Segmentation and profiling, Helen's already referred to culture segments, which is a great tool in itself. And relating profiling and so on to the status of customers, are they members, are they subscribers, or whatever, and their behaviours like frequencies and so on. So that encompasses loyalty, memberships, point schemes, and so on. Fundraising and development naturally integrated. My goodness me, it's been a wake-up call in the UK to have huge cuts to the funding for the arts, and the government basically saying, no, we're expecting for all those middle class, reasonably well-off attenders for you to start raising money from them to subsidise the organisation. And we've got organisations discovering there's a database in the box office, and that was an interesting thing. And then they're kind of going, oh, quick, let's run that, because there's a tool that you can access where you can find the high net worth individuals on your list. There are people who are analysing the purchasing patterns. Why haven't we been talking to this person? Look, they come this frequently, they buy huge numbers of tickets, and so on, and kind of like, we've never heard of them. Very interesting developments. But so the whole business of what you can do if you start thinking about the individuals, round-up dimensions, and so on is very important. Dynamic pricing and revenue management. Tim Baker and Debbie Richards must think it's Christmas, because every organisation is coming around now saying, right now we have to find ways of maximising our income, there must be ways, and so on, and they're able to demonstrate that almost every time it's possible to increase income by 5 to 10% per annum, simply by working out how you apply your prices in an appropriate way and when you charge them. Programmed, sometimes automated communication. One best example of that comes from the Royal Danish Playhouse, but I'll tell you about that when we get to it. And the whole business of shared systems and collaborations. It's a great irony that I was doing that when I found out what Helen's latest audience development project here is. So, let's start off with personalisation. We were all very worried, both in the arts and in the technology centre, when in the 90s the great fear was that the ultimate network device would be the television, and it would be fairly obviously tethered in the lounge. So it's been an astonishing breakthrough that turns out to be the always on, always connected smartphone. I'm guessing everybody in the room has got one of those? Anybody hasn't? No? Oh,
Proudly hasn't.
Proud. Okay. But the fact is the vast majority of people have. I don't know what your experience is, but when somebody phones me on my iPhone, do they expect to speak to me? Does anybody else ever answer that phone? Does anybody else answer your phone? No? Do I get you if I phone you up? Well, hang on, and if I send an email to that phone, it's your address. I had to use your address to get it. So it's you reading it. If I send you a text message, you read it, don't you? And nobody else does. We've actually reached a point where, in most cases, we can communicate with people genuinely, directly, personally, and we kind of need to remember that, because that's a bigger change in marketing, ticketing, than the telephone, the credit card, and the internet, because it's genuinely personal. In Christchurch, we were staying at the George and was having a conversation with our members of staff, and for them, the issue running a hotel is the need to recognise the customers, to be able to talk to them, to remember them, to treat them as individuals. They're not just people who are paying for a hotel room for the night. They're people who are coming, staying there. The old thing that they're coming to stay in their house, the front of house staff in venues, because we are asking people into our house, and they are people, they're individuals who are coming and having an experience with us. How do we treat them as real people, all different, all their own interests, and so on? So we can communicate genuinely with an individual. I have heard Andrew McIntyre say to people, it does tend to upset some people, saying, okay, you've got an audience on your database of 20,000, so that's 20,000 audience development strategies, 20,000 communication strategies. Thank goodness we can segment a little bit, but the issue, it seems to me, is to make sure that we're tailoring what we're doing to those people. From their purchase history, from their attendance behaviour, make sure it's relevant. We're in a terrifying situation where they can tell instantly whether that content was intended for them, is appropriate to them and relevant. They're the ones who remember, or they're the ones who forget. So you can personalise messaging, response handling to the named individual, and if you want, you can offer them things like, want it purchase now, what's the payment gateways, we'll do that. And you can give them easy social network sharing. And of course, having got that ultimate network device, we've now got the tablets, the sofa channel. Now, the interesting thing is, this is the year at which the PC has been beaten by the mobile devices. So PC sales across the globe are declining, and tablets have overtaken them, the mobile devices. Now, I think this is quite amusing, because one of the research studies, they said, you know, that kind of low-end tablet devices are replacing the PC, even down to children as young as 5 and 6 as being bought them, and so on. And I was kind of thinking, low-end tablet device. I don't think I've seen a tablet device that I would define as low-end in terms of the functionality, what it can do, how it works, and the advantage for us. All the research we have shows that, for example, in a family setting, this is out on the sofa, where should we go out? very often driven by mum. Where should we go with the kids? People looking at the images, passing it around, and so on, making decisions to go out. And you can see why it's becoming a very popular purchasing device for people in terms of their decisions to go out. This is that chart. This is the only one I could find, but it has actually happened that the mobile devices have dominated. This is UK data, apologies. They're now saying that in 2013, 48% of the UK population and 60% of the mobile phone users are on smartphones. So 48% is very good. Higher percentages for the age range 12 to 54, heading over 90% in that age category. Highest for over the 12 to 24-year-olds. Lowest for the over 65s. I have to say, as a mature person, however, I'm seeing a significant change. I mean, what is being joked at, the grandparents catching up, because the grandparents cannot afford not to be in touch with their grandchildren and so on, and so they're having to adopt the technology as well. And a number of arts organisations are interestingly saying, you know, instead of the old, in our organisation, they're very reluctant to book online. They're saying, how do we make them book online? Priority booking is only available online. You know, to push people towards the adoption of the technology. It varies by socioeconomic profile. These are 2012 figures. The ABs, the top of the socioeconomic pile, 62%. You know, that's against that 48.4 of the UK population. The C1 is 59%. Even the C2 is 51%. The AB C1s are the primary arts attenders. So it's very clearly a great opportunity. DEs, the low end of the profile, 41%. Interesting, females 58%, males 42%, but more purchases on mobiles made by men. The researchers suggest that is male commuters, and remember this is the UK we're talking about, using their commuting time to make purchases while they're travelling. Slightly larger percentage than women. We're seeing this rise of personal screens. This is email marketer data from 2012 in the UK as well. And basically, what you see is that the tethered systems, the desktop, the smart TV, the game console, much lower proportions than some of the laptop netbook, the smartphone. eMarketer reported it at 36%. All the other surveys in the UK were indicating more like 45% of the data this survey. Even then, tablets at 13 and so on. An interesting debate about ultimately where things like the Kindle and so on will go in that context. So we're seeing a radical change, and that's actually raising issues with us about channel control, the screen form factors, and so on. Optimization for the different screen forms is imperative. We can't ignore it. Yes, we're talking about the fact that we now have to repurpose, rewrite content in relation to the form and the key tasks that people are doing, and we need to use our Google Analytics and other tools to understand what it is people are coming to our pages to do, and make sure that we're offering the right things. So it's not optional, it's absolutely essential. Content can be rethought based on the device, the task, knowing who you're talking to. You should be talking to members in a different way, and so on. I keep mentioning this kind of link with fundraising. Very interesting point made to me by the head of development at Sadler's Wells Theatre in London, who was saying that one of the things that she didn't understand was that in fundraising and development, talking to 10 people, talking to 100 people, talking to 1,000 people, was perfectly doable, and it was something that you had to do and you had to get right, and you had to get the messaging right, and you had to tune what you did, and if necessary, when you were getting ready to send stuff out to groups as large as that, you might want to do quite a bit of personalisation of the content in the process, and you couldn't understand why it was that in marketing, doing that for 10 people was a bloody nuisance, doing it for 100 was really quite difficult, and if it's 1,000, then we're going to get one version. And you go, hang on, and look at the number of our attenders, and the core audience is 600 who go off and then buy a load of tickets and then tell all their friends. Well, you know, with a bit of effort, we could easily personalise for 600 people, and we could sort out the relevance of the content and tune that, because these people are very important to us. If only 550 respond to our messages, that's a problem. I mean, I think that's a very interesting point. We're seeing organisations who are running campaigns who've got used to 30% success, 35% success, 40% success rates. And they're going, we can't afford to see those figures drop down, but by over-mailing them, abusing the audience, not making it personal, not making it relevant, they are seeing those numbers go down. And that's, in some cases, simply because they're unread. And I think that's a very dangerous situation to get to. We need to be recognising the returning customers, we need to be responding, of course, to their status, membership, frequency, and we need to be making sure that it's relevant. Content essentially relates to the form and the task. Some examples here of screen and form content factors. I do worry about people who rush towards apps, because usually you've got to get them from either the iTunes store or the Android store or Nokia's Always store and so on. When actually the most important thing is to optimise the screen and the content of the cookies and so on. We can recognise people, and even with your strict data protection and privacy controls, that works here. There's no doubt about the fact that it's very easy to kind of sort out the content, simplify it, make it read on a mobile device, and be able to kind of have an absolutely optimised version that is very easy to click through. And if you've got one-click purchasing, it's possible to actually send out a campaign specifically going, say, to mobile phones or to tablets in that form, and that somebody can actually literally click and choose 2 tickets and pay for them very, very simply because of the benefits of using the cookies and everything else. If we've got into that personalisation, it seems to me that the kind of key step that follows from that is the whole business of Facebook integration, the Facebook generation, and what we do with the rest of the social media. Oh, by the way, the hashtag for today, if anybody's tweeting in this session, is working smarter. I'm at Brendan Johanna. We've got this always-on generation melding online, local friends into their social media community. There are those of us who are not fully participating in this world. There are people who it's actually now part of their lives and how they live. And I think that's a very interesting change that we've seen. I was fascinated by a presentation that I saw by Jackie Chang, who's got an unbelievable job title, we'll get there in a minute, which was basically saying live events are inherently social. And I was thinking, well, yeah, I knew that. We go out with our friends, we enjoy it, and so on. Now, you can imagine in Facebook that they look at that situation and kind of going, we understand it, but you guys don't seem to. Because Jackie Chang was making this point that she came up with 2.7. I think we agree, don't we, that that in the UK certainly, typical purchases on a ticketing system is 2.3 plus. I mean, you know, in the sense that it's percentage points above that. Maybe it's larger for rock and pop and entertainment and sport things. Maybe that's it. And that is that people are posting all the time photographs of them going to the theatre, going to concerts, going to arts events, etc. You know, and that they're things that they remember. Highlights of their lives are, we went to this, we went to this, we went to this, we went to this. And we shouldn't ever forget that. It's always a salutary experience, isn't it, Alan, to kind of look up a venue on Flickr and see just how many pictures people have put up of that venue. And very often the organisation inside is going, oh, where is that thing? You know, oh dear. And if another one puts up a photograph of an empty auditorium to invite us to attend, that really gets me. Jackie Chang of Facebook's Platform Partnerships Commerce Department. Yeah. But she did make some very interesting points that had Ron shouting, yay! The traditional marketing formula to trigger purchases, AIDA, awareness, interest, decision, action, does not reflect the social dimensions of negotiating attendance with friends and family. Absolutely, when we think about it, yes. How is it that those decisions get made? What goes on in the discussions to agree to go out? Okay, Facebook is said to dominate e-commerce. You will understand that Google don't like that, and they dispute some of the projections. But while the rate at which Facebook is adding new people is slowing, the overall climb as people are using it, the revenue generation and the relationships, they definitely are changing. And there's new territories. So this actually was originally developed for the Swedish model. In Sweden, they're very, very interesting. I can go online, I can look at a performance, and I can see I can get 2 great seats in the circle for Saturday night. I can reserve them and not pay for them. Because I'm a nice person, aren't I? I'm Swedish. And, you know, you'll give me 48 hours to check with my partners, friends, spouse, whatever, and then come back and pay for the tickets. And I will do that, or I will go back and cancel them. Okay, now, the obvious step beyond that is, I've just spotted there's a great event and I want our friends to go. I'm going to reserve 4 seats, I'm going to pay for my 2, and I want to email the payment instructions to my 2 friends. A ticketing system has developed that and runs it inside Facebook so that you can actually reserve those seats for your friends and actually then say to them, you know, go and pay for tickets. I don't know about you, but I don't accept credit card payments personally. Do you find when you go out with your friend, everybody produces plastic now to pay for things? I go, no, I need real money. I may have paid for the tickets myself. I want to now be paid back. And there's so many occasions I could smile and say, okay, next time. So seats booked, paid for, saved for friends, send off the instructions, they come back. So I was very entertained a few years ago because I was doing a presentation for Intix in San Antonio, Texas, and I was looking around for, at that time, examples of people who'd introduced a deep interface integration into Facebook. And what did I find as a venue that was literally one of the earliest adopters in the world? Good old Pump House from the North Shore, where, provided you like the organisation, you can drop into a frame, book online, see all the information. Everything goes directly into the PatronBase database and is fully recorded and kept. And the people never leave their Facebook page to do it. Of course, the The next level that's being achieved is very interesting. This is the Zaan Theatre in the Netherlands, where you can actually see where all your Facebook friends are sitting in the auditorium. There is a setting that you can say, don't hide me, which I think is very interesting. But, you know, it's a kind of interesting situation where this openness, and what we're seeing in the US, it's a bit different from what's happening in the UK. I think I would say that's fair, isn't it, Andrew? That we're not seeing a huge accelerating adoption of ticketing through Facebook in the UK. In the US, in the first year, it went straight to 19% of online sales. That's a lot, and that's very fast adoption. And that's rocketing away in the US. It's really increasing.
Why is that, Roger? Do you know? Why not so much of an adoption in the UK?
Fundamentally, in Europe, we have much greater distrust of Google and Facebook and so on. And the NSA has just proved that we're right. So, you know, there's no doubt about the fact that we're more worried about our privacy and giving our things like credit card information and so on, which is why the kind of pump house type integration where it doesn't run through Facebook's e-commerce API is actually a good thing, in my view. Of course, Twitter's one of the interesting dimensions. Jake Orr runs this website about a younger theatre, and he's blogged a number of times about, you know, what are arts organisations doing. He's saying the wrong people are tweeting from arts organisations, and we're using the shout louder principle. What is it you don't understand about book now? Kind of level, and it's not persuasive and it's not helpful, and people want a lot more information, a lot more friendly, informal information, and younger audiences want that to be a certain extent creative and encouraging them to post comments and come back and so on. So I think I'm convinced, certainly what I'm hearing in the US and Europe, Twitter is a huge beneficial channel, and I'll show you an example in a minute. In fact, right now, we're seeing this situation of where you complete your online purchase. This is a PatronBase purchase receipt, and you get to be able to share them on Twitter or post it on Facebook. And what the recipient then gets is something like this. The message obviously can be personalised by them, but you obviously have to write something that's kind of got an appropriate tone according to the event. And you then land, if you follow that link, on directly back to that performance and the ability to buy tickets for it. In some cases, you can actually have the link configured so that it actually goes into the performance in the same part of house if you want. But, you know, it's not necessary. What we're seeing is that is producing a lot of bookings. It's one of the things that's intriguing them in the US when they make their analyses of Twitter and Facebook-driven purchase is the validation of somebody else saying, I'm going to Q Theatre on Friday night to see this. Their friends go, oh, they like such and such art form, it must be good, we'll go too. Not necessarily the same night, but during the run. And that's a very important factor. So, segmentation, profiling, that's a kind of important opportunity that we're getting. And culture segments, as a few other tools are doing, are taking that further and actually embedding it in data we know about the customers and their attendances and making it much more meaningful for us because they're relating it to our actual attenders and their purchase behaviour. So if you get looking at that enrichment group, It can tell us lots about them, what their age profile is. This is the UK profiling system. And wonderfully, it can give us indices about the interest in art forms, etc., their frequency of attendance, what they like and what they don't like, and so on. When you think about it, when we can put together data this powerful, with the fact that we can personalise our messaging and so on, we can be much more sensitive and much more focused about communicating with people. And as I say, it's about how few people we communicate with and how effectively. If I could say there's a trend that one's witnessing in the US and the UK, for example, a few years ago, it would be how many people have you got in your database and how many you're communicating with. Arts marketers, how few are you now emailing to get your results? It's reversing the process. Yes, we want a big database, but when we're mailing, we want to mail as few people as possible, so we're over-mailing nobody, and we're getting the kind of results that get the level of sales we want because we're speaking to people specifically. This is Chapter Art Centre in Cardiff. Very interesting, dynamic organisation. They have loyalty and membership schemes and so on. The interesting thing to me is in a combination of using some segmentation, some information of themselves from themselves and also from their members and so on, they operate this wonderful click loyalty scheme where you attend events and you get loyalty points. You can then redeem those loyalty points in when you attend, that you can vary the redemption rates and so on, and that is all linked up. And it even goes to the extent that if you post a review about them, you get loyalty points and so on. And that's all driven by PatronBase and integrated into it. There's an interesting example of their loyalty scheme that they've developed. And the key thing about it is that Chapter have found that those people who attend, they show a lot of movies, Art House, they're now able to track the behaviour of all those people because they give them this free click card and they swipe it and get their points and so on. And it enables them to understand that core audience, who they kind of assumed wasn't their main attendance for theatre and other art forms, is actually the core audience that also attend the theatre and their galleries and so on. And they do sales promotions in which you can, they give you double points at the bar if you buy a Belgian white beer kind of stuff. It's all good stuff. Fundraising and development. We've now got these direct opportunities in the sense that people are engaging with us directly online through the different channels. And that interface with the customers just alone provides opportunities which we've not taken in the past. Roundup donations are working fantastically, where basically when somebody makes a transaction, you ask them if they'd like to volunteer to round it up to some higher amount. There are some venues, Kingston in Rose Theatre in Kingston, who very carefully manipulate it so that their prices never round up in terms of adding together the tickets, and then they can always ask people if they'll volunteer a donation of various sizes, and it's been phenomenally successful. I mean, what fascinates me is you get organisations who go, well, we've never done this before, and now we've set it, and it's producing, £2,000-3,000 a month, and they're going, it's amazing, we don't do anything, and they've managed to get it go up by going, oh, let's try just increasing it by a bit more, the requested donation amount, and see what happens. Are you going to talk about that?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. So-called program giving, so you get people to sign up and they agree they'll pay by direct debit and they'll give you a small amount a month and so on. And again, people are just astonished at the number of people who agree to sign up to those methods. They've been doing that very successfully in the US, obviously for years, crowdsourcing and so on, as they call it, but it's becoming very, very important as a means. Tiered membership schemes focused on fundraising and engagement. The whole concept of taking people and moving them up your loyalty ladder. They join a basic membership scheme, and then you keep saying, well, if you came at this higher level, we give you certain benefits or privileges, but remembering all the time that we make sure that actually the ultimate gain is to the organisation from the donation. I think the American give, get, graft or get off mentality is very, very interesting in working with people. I think we give too much away in terms of benefits in memberships, and internationally, if that is a trend of recognising that too often we are incentivising to attend more at good prices the very people who would pay more. In the crisis in the orchestras in the States, they've been panicking and going, oh right, oh dear, we're going to have to put the price of subscription. The audience does not blench. In some cases, they've taken away their 30% reduction, and the audience just says, fine. Do you think the only reason they were going was because you were giving a huge reduction of the ticket price? Might it have been that they were going to enjoy the concert? You know, and we forget, you know, what it is that the audience potentially actually values. Benefits can be controlled and delivered, including integration with point of sale systems, etc., etc. You know, you get venues like the Brighton Dome, where there's a whole complex matrix of benefits you get for being a member, but one of the most important things is whenever you go to the bar, you show your card, they want to swipe it, only if they swipe it will they give you 10% off your drinks and so on, and it then goes back into the database that says that person went to the bar, spent that amount of money, and they can work out who it is who of their members are the ones who are making socially driven purchases. This is an example of the help us do a little bit more. As a registered charity, rounding up to near £2, just an extra £1.25, would really help us to do that little more. Is that something you'd like to do? No thanks, yes please. There's been this irony, hasn't there? They've changed the EU regulations, and you couldn't, with inertia, put that money into the basket and make them take it out if they didn't. You have to ask them. Asking them it's gone up. It's just absolutely fascinating. Dynamic pricing and revenue management. This whole business that we've got in the ticketing system database, something that's saying when did those people buy the tickets, what order did the tickets run. You think about it, your ticketing system, you could run a track that said what was the first seat that we sold when we put that play on sale, what was the second seat that sold, what was the third, what was the fourth, and plot those round the house. And that's what this does, showing which ones are mostly unsold, which ones were sold most, and you can then price accordingly. I have to say, hilariously, you know, you get these things where these are some very nice house seats, and the number of nights they're left empty because nobody allocates them to be sold at the last minute is crazy. And you can go on and you can do huge analyses of your shows, your price bands, what gets unsold, and so on. And I'm afraid the pattern from around the world continues to be that the highest price seats sell first and fastest. Funnily enough, when people go out, they actually like to sit in a very good seat from which they've got an excellent view. And very few people choose to sit in a bad seat at the back of the auditorium. Well, there's a few come and sit next to me so that I can get to the bar quickly. But revenue management seems to be the thing that most arts organisations are interested in. You could say, so I'll just fill in, that dynamic pricing is something they're very keen on in sport, and some people are saying they want to do it in the arts. I don't know anybody who does it in the arts yet automatically, but in rock and pop, Ticketmaster are doing it. Ticketmaster it involves everything from Facebook scores, from Twitter scores, from the number of people accessing the web pages, the number of people actually clicking through, as well as the level of purchase, and it automatically puts up the price according to the demand. Okay? So you set a series of prices for the event, a median price, which is the one you put on sale, and depending on demand, the price goes up. Okay? That is now operational in many major arena and stadia around the world, and it's now being applied by many sports teams and so on. Notionally, the software has been built to reduce the price if the demand is limited. If you're in the world of booking fees, the most interesting thing to me is which organisation is removing booking fees because they are a serious impediment to purchase. Ticketmaster in the US. It's owned by Live Nation now. Suddenly the number of tickets we sell for our gigs is very important. Anything that's an impediment to selling, we better get it out of the way, haven't we? Go for inclusive pricing. Very interesting moves. Dynamic pricing, however, the New York Phil, wonderful box office manager Linda Fellini, one of the best in the world, she is constantly monitoring the sales of the orchestra for concerts, and the prices go up by $5, $10, $15, according to the demand for part of house and so on. Absolutely optimising the income. Very, very interesting. You've got to know what you're doing. Programmed communications, automated emailing and so on. This is the lovely Royal Danish Playhouse in Copenhagen, Denmark, where they speak Danish. Aren't you surprised? Their entire website runs in full, totally fluent English as well. They even translate all the content all the way through. You go and you buy a ticket, and you get a nice acknowledgement email. Even if you go over the counter or on the phone, they ask for your email details so they can send you an acknowledgement. Great. The day before, you get an email which says, you know, we can book your table in the restaurant. These are the times of the openings. There have been, you know, we know there may be some transport difficulties if there's some roadworks on the way. We'll send you an update. So the next day, I get a tailored traffic update with information about the parking, garages, and various other things, and so on. I attend the event. Next morning, I get a morning after the night before email thanking me very much for attending and asking me to fill in a small, very short survey, literally 4 or 5 questions about my satisfaction. If I respond to that, I get another very nice thank you, but I now get told that let us know when you're next coming and quote this reference, and with, you know, it's usually a small reduction off a seat price. Sometimes it's a glass of wine, depending on the character of the person and so on. If I don't particularly respond, in a month's time, I get an email that says, thank you very much for coming to see that. We just thought we'd let you know that this is on, and we thought that the people who went to see that would be really interested in this, and so on. Now, the interesting thing is this process continues for 9 months, okay? In the sense that I just keep getting absolutely tailored and specific emails, okay? They showed me the automated process that runs that and has a member of staff who's writing all the little personalisation elements of the messages according to who they're going out to. So they have a member of staff all the time, but it's automated. You buy the ticket and it just runs. Apparently it's some kind of speed version of MailChimp it's built on. Somebody's built this whole interface that then runs. Astonishing and highly effective. It brings people back. It reminds them, it keeps the audience alive, it keeps them returning. their analysis shows that if people aren't brought back within 9 months, they don't come back for a long time. And so their whole effort is trying to get people to come back sooner. Very interesting. Very interesting. Shared systems and collaborations. I think this is a very interesting area because we've had arts marketing consortia in the UK. We've now got a national audience development agency that's merged all those together and is trying to work with hundreds of organisations across the country. But we're actually starting to see more and more people sharing systems and collaborating. Doesn't matter what kind of form that is, hubs and spokes, central system, satellite systems hanging off it, just shared systems, a group of people all around one venue, and so on. It's about reducing costs, it's about economies of scale. I think it's also about the database of truth in the sense of understanding who our audience is, where they're going, what they're doing. Are they not coming to me because they're going to there, and vice versa. And it is about growing and developing audiences. It's about understanding what the total potential is. So I think that's very interesting how that aligns with the project that Helen was describing. I also think it's a technology issue that for some people it's about one organisation taking responsibility for keeping the system running, managing all the interfaces, and so on. And we're certainly seeing that being adopted by more and more. We're now seeing systems, again, PatronBase does this, to have multiple skins, controlled access to the database, transforming the opportunities of what happens when people shares the system. This one is Bath. The Bath box office is run by Bath Festivals, and it provides an integrated box office service for Bath and North East Somerset and a lot of Bristol organisations. It's run by Bath Festivals so that they can actually almost remove the cost of their own sales because they make a small marginal charge to their users. I tried to take a screen grab of what happens when you click on select an organisation. Okay, so here we are in Bath. We've got a box office with a number of organisations sharing one system. How many users are under that list of select an organisation? Any thoughts? Just over 100. Okay. I think it keeps John awake at night sometimes, but and it just shows you what you can do. And if somebody's got a special festival with multiple events, they can have their own skin. It looks like their organisation, but the back end is entirely being driven by this anonymous, hidden Bath box office organisation. Very clever. You can pull out, this is a group of local authorities that I've worked with, and they share data to compile benchmarks and key performance indicators around front of house tickets, subsidy per ticket, the marketing spend per ticket sold, and so on. And you can imagine the fun and games when they're comparing the results of these people who spend 67p per ticket sold compared with these people who spend £1.71 per ticket sold. And the kind of project that you're doing here in Auckland produces this kind of result. This is from the Old Audiences London snapshot, where you can profile socioeconomically an audience and then compare it with the bookers for similar art forms in other venues, and then all the people on your list, and somewhat depressingly find that there's a real socioeconomic leaning to just a few types of people. And this is a citywide venue crossover when you start to understand that the audience attend lots of different things in different places. So, Ticketing is a new conceptual space, it seems to me, and this is something that we need to think about very carefully. We need to make strategic decisions about it in organisations, and it's got a lot of implications for us. For a start, it's inherently personal. I think we need to remember this. And this is, if anything, our greatest weakness at the moment, and potentially our greatest failing, because the public, it seems to me, and our attenders are perfectly well aware that we're in this space where we could communicate them more personally, more relevantly, and so on. And actually they're seeking that. We can be realistically narrowcast in our communications with people. We can be tailored and specific. We really could remember their details and who they are and when they last came and so on. So use what you know and what they know. The danger is all the time we forget what the audience know about their visits to us, their experience of us, and we're the ones who forget. More open, transparent, friendly. The thing that we've seen with the Twitter feeds, with the Facebook postings and everything, is that arts organisations have decided to be open and transparent, to tweet about the rehearsals, to put up pictures of artists who've just arrived for something. For box office staff to be saying, oh great, such and such has just walked past the box office, they've just been cast in such and such a play. Things we would never have done before, we're now kind of openly talking about. And I think that that transparency is really appreciated by the public. Expecting, creating dialogue and feedback. Yes, getting people posting, perhaps even rewarding them with loyalty points for doing it, but wanting to hear from people of their views and opinions. And ultimately, therefore, it's about people and relationships. It's definitely not transactional. It's not about pieces of card, bums on seats, all those expressions. It's about valued customers and our relationship with them and them coming back. And it is selling more by helping people buy. And it does raise a very interesting question. It could have been the longest bar in the world, didn't it?
Yeah, not at those prices.
So, thank you very much indeed for listening.
Thank you, Roger.